I feel that personally, when I became an entrepreneur, there were a lot of instances where you see, startup founders who are majority men, or actually in India as well, a lot of women's healthcare platforms actually founded by men. So I think when we started out our journey at Ara Health, it was nice that, I had 3 women co-founders with me, because I think that the kind of products and the kind of information we were putting out there or wanted to achieve through the platform was possible because of a lot of our personal experiences. So I think it was great to have that opportunity to work with women and create something that women were going to be the end consumer of. Hi, I'm Nanda and you're watching me on Mirchi Plus.
Hi, I'm Kavita Rajwade and you're watching me on Mirchi Plus.
She may not be a Bollywood actress or wanting to be one, but she's definitely being an internet sensation by being a podcaster. Welcoming Nanda on Mirchi Plus, and along with her is the brain behind this podcast show. Welcoming Kavita on Mirchi Plus.
Thank you.
So it's very good to have both of you together, and the show is already making a lot of noise on the internet. How does that make you feel?
Great.
Good, that makes us feel good.
But what was this name called? What the Hell Navya? Why What the Hell Navya?
So of course, I mean, when we were discussing this show initially, and just for the people who are listening, we obviously explored this idea through the lockdown, right? And at that time when we couldn't really meet in office, we were mostly doing all our meetings on Zoom, and every time we were in conversation with Navya, we just for some reason had enough other people within the family that mostly called out to her and were mostly yelling her name out in the way that this show name has turned out. So what the hell Navya was one of the most commonly used phrases, and I thought actually if there is anything about a 24-year-old girl, boy, whatever, right? But the fact that this what the hell aspect about what Gen Z is doing or whatever was a great phrase for us to kind of segue into the multiple other conversations she kind of wanted to have. So yeah, that's where the name came from.
How many times in real life have got to hear this what the hell Navya?
I've lost count, I think. Many times. Even during the recordings, it was something that kind of comes up.
But it's quite good to see 3 different generations together. Your mother, your grandmother coming together, and the way they have spoken. They have spoken about women in general, and how women even now struggle to be on at par, maybe, or maybe they're not trying to compete with men. They're trying to have their own benchmark. Do you somewhere feel the same? And have you been through that ever? Of course you come with with a background which is very different, but at the same time you never know.
Yeah, no, I think there's a difference between equality and equity, and I think that a lot of the things we've spoken about is definitely not against men, because I don't think that we believe in that. I think it's about giving women equal opportunities that men get, and allowing them to really harness the best out of those opportunities. And I think that all the topics that we've talked about, whether it's been in healthcare or in financial independence, has talked about that. So I don't think that it's per se, against men, or, because I really believe that, in order to achieve equality, men need to be a part of that mission and a part of that journey. Men play very important roles in our lives as fathers, as brothers, as grandfathers. So I think it's really important for them to, be along that ride with us. And I think that I feel that personally, when I became an entrepreneur, there were a lot of instances where you see, startup founders who are majority men, or actually in India as well, a lot of women's healthcare platforms actually founded by men. So I think when we started out our journey at Ara Health, it was nice that I had 3 women co-founders with me, because I think that the kind of products and the kind of information we were putting out there or wanted to achieve through the platform was possible because of a lot of our personal experiences. So I think it was great to have that opportunity to work with women and create something that women were going to be the end consumer of.
You started podcast at a stage when people didn't even know what podcast is. Now it's become so popular that people really tune into podcast, or wish to hear. How
Right.
does that make you feel? Because a lot of popular shows have also come on that.
Yeah, actually, I mean, it's taken its time to see its moment in the sun, and I think in amongst all the other conversations we've had regarding this show, this particular question keeps cropping up, right? I mean, it was tough, right? When we started way back in 2015, 2016, audio in the time of video was not being considered as a wise way to approach, putting out the conversation around a new medium, right? So I think that we just mostly had to stick to our guns in terms of what we really thought and where the gap in the Indian market was, right? Podcasting is really big in the West, and that actually comes from just the way they've been doing content for all of this. There's a huge democratized approach to what content is really seen like, which I think in our country not that much. And I felt like, I've said this before again, like, with IBM, we've mostly been a platform of like pretty much like the rise of the public intellectual, right? We've taken subject matter experts and really got them to kind of, break down ideas and thoughts that people can really actually learn from. So I felt like the long form aspect of podcasts is something that video doesn't really actually deliver well for. Because again, for the longest time, the fact that the audience has ADHD and that you should keep stuff like at short format and stuff like that. But if I have to tell you how I built my company, or if she has to tell you the story behind Ara, there's no way she's going to be able to do this in like maybe 60 seconds or 3 minutes or 4 minutes. She's probably going to need a longer span. And we kind of wanted to showcase high quality conversations through subject matter experts that more people can really see in the infotainment space. So I feel like, maybe entertainment can kind of go, because, it's not, we've been such a radio friendly country, right? But radio for us has always been about music and the storytelling around music. But there's just so much other stuff that I think that needs to be captured, and I think like podcasting lends really, really well to those kind of subjects, right? Like, how do you get better with your money? How do you understand the rise of like, the tech ecosystem in our country? And we've always wanted to build a platform that showcases stories from India, and that's where I think that we've managed to kind of stick through the slightly tougher times, and I felt the lockdown kind of changed a lot of that for us.
I mean, for you, the podcast, what has been your thought, while working on this one? Was it like you wanted, such conversations to come out, of, women being progressive or wanting to be one, or, the way their journeys have been built over the years? But now it's changing, but it's taking very slow, it's going very slow, but at the same time, we can see that growth. What was your thought in this?
So I think the podcast for me was not something that we had to script too much, because the kind of conversations we were having on the show are also, things that my mom and my nani talk about, outside the studio as well. So it was not as such that, we were being forced to have these conversations. I think that all three of us have very strong opinions about women and women empowerment and independence. And I think we got a great way for the three of us to share those views and opinions with each other. And at the same time, be able to create a space where the three of us felt comfortable enough having those conversations. So I think that, when we talk about progress, I think that I think we all have a responsibility to work towards that, and I think we're trying to do our bit by having those conversations, on platforms, whether that's audio or video, and I think that this podcast really allowed us to do that.
And there was a lot of fun, conversation also taking place. And the one thing which I noticed was you lie very easily.
Yeah, and my mom says that in the trailer, that I'm the worst liar. So every time I think I've tried lying to my mom or to any family member, I think I've probably been caught or called out.
Today, did you try lying by any chance?
No, I've stopped now because it's obviously not my forte.
It's very obvious now.
Yeah. So I think I'm just going with being honest now. I think it works better.
But when your grandmother spoke about the gender disparity, the pay, and that is something I think it's true. When you go through it, you get to know that, of course, it does happen. Men are also often given certain roles. Women are taking a lot of time to get that role. They have to literally slog for years, and I think you both might agree. And also in terms of packages, men are paid quite well, and you sometimes feel like, you have done that work very well, but why this person is getting that XYZ amount? What are your thoughts on that?
Man, pay parity is such a large conversation. I feel like if there's anything today, like she spoke about equality and equity, right? Like eventually that's what we're mostly, I sometimes feel like that's your singular point of focus right now. If I have to define my idea of feminism outside of everything, and as much as we spoke about how we'll be really inclusive with all the men voices or like the male voices that we really want to also make a part of this whole thing, but I think pay parity is where it's at, right? I mean, I think you're seeing this globally, and I feel like in the slightly more, evolved, job markets, I feel like, there is going to be a time, and I see that soon, when I say that it's not something that, is, 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, but I think that there are small movements that are happening within that space, right? I think the voices around this stuff has gotten so much stronger, and I feel like today, even when we kind of wanted to, kind of have a conversation around these kind of things on the show, the financial independence and the equality aspect of it was a really, really important conversation for us to have, right? And I guess like with Navya and her grandmother and mom, you just had like, a three-way approach, or just literally like understanding where she as a 24-year-old really stands in the job market or in the money market compared to where her grandmother was, right? 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And one of the things that is actually really positive about the show is to also give you a little bit of a glimpse of how much things have changed, right? Like I feel like, we constantly sit down and worry about like, man, are we going to get there yet? Are we going to get there yet? But I think that with What the Hell Navya, I think what we've managed to also showcase is that, man, 50 years ago, life in this country was very, very different. And here is Navya, who studied abroad but is now here and is running a business of her own, which so many other people her generation would be doing right now, but you wouldn't have seen as a common thing long ago. So I feel like there is movement, there is progress. Are we there yet? Hell no. I don't know whether we're going to be able to see this, at least for me, from my time on this planet. But I feel like, the ball is set rolling. I think we're going to be able to see good times.
What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I think that, that'll only change when we see more women in positions of leadership. And I think we've begun seeing that. We have leaders like Falguni Nair, Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, we have Arundhati Bhattacharya, all incredible women who've been in positions of leadership and have actually actively tried changing a lot of, what we've seen happening over the years. And I think that this generation is also going to see a rise of a lot of women leaders who will go out there and change the way that things have been done, whether it's in parity or healthcare or whatever that may be. And I think that it's great to be living through that time period and to see that change happening and almost be a part of it.
And change begins with, from home. We say that, quite often, and it was very surprising and quite happy to hear from, Jaya Bachchan saying that, she's okay if you don't get married and, have a child. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think everyone has their views. She's got hers, I have mine, and I think I'm just grateful that, she's there to give me a lot of advice from the vast experience that she's had as a woman, as a working woman, as a wife, as a mother herself. So yeah, I think that I'm also somebody who's open to like listening to everyone's views and opinions, and I think that I'm just happy that she's there to guide me through this tricky space that we call life.
Do you also feel the change, we see, earlier when it came to, talking about periods, that comfortable, or, maybe our parents for that matter, but now we can easily say that, okay, I'm chumming, or, listen, I need a break. And now there are offices which actually allow, period break.
Our officers menstrual leave.
Yeah, so there is like, if you want to take a leave, you can take a leave. You can openly say to your boss, even if it's, a male boss for that matter. You somewhere feel that's quite good also, because in that way, India was way too back. People would not comfortable talk, oh, Mahina aaya hai. Even if you go to the rural areas, they have this kind of language. But now somewhere you feel that, maybe they are open about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say thank you about it, because I think that we deserved that from the beginning. Yeah. So I'm glad that that's something that's being practiced, in offices, even at home, and even in schools for that matter. A lot of young girls till date actually are not able to go to school because of lack of access to sanitary products. So I'm glad that things are changing, but there's still a lot that has to be done. We can comfortably say, living in urban areas, that we have all of these things, but the reality is very different when you go on ground. And I work very closely with a lot of areas that still have issues of lack of access to even a sanitary pad. So I think that, yes, I'm really glad to see that these are things that are happening, but there's still a lot that has to be done.
Like, talking about mental health is one conversation where, be it transgenders, be it LGBTQ Q community, be it normal male, females, when they go through that, often it's been noticed they are being cornered. They say that "Arey, ye kya depressive baatein leke baitha hai." You know, people don't tend to understand. Maybe we are also, you know, somewhere rushing. There's some rat race that we have to prove our point, and because of which many a times people are not, you know, able to understand what they're going through. You know, actresses like Deepika Padukone has spoken about that, and many people go through that. They end up their lives, and, you know, sometimes they become so criminal minded that they end up hurting someone else. What are your thoughts on that, you know, both of you?
Man, you have to be empathetic, man. We're not an easy country to live in. We're not an easy world to live in. It's what it is at. But at the same time, I feel like, see, our generation, and I feel like, you know, that's like the difference, right? I feel like Navya's generation is so digitally enhanced. They've really grown up with phones in their hand, and it's one of those, at least like, you know, for us, like, man, I didn't have a phone till I was 20, right? Like my initial school, or like, and I felt that, you know, there was a freedom aspect to, you know, the amount of, like, there was a way to be able to kind of feel the amount of information overload that you could have, which I think that this generation doesn't. There is a constant, you know, element of like the amount of content that's actually coming to you and the amount of stimuli. So they're mostly overstimulated, right? And I feel like it could be one of those, not saying that, you know, we didn't have mental health issues. In fact, at that time, man, there was absolutely no awareness, right? And sometimes the no awareness versus lots of awareness, you know, is something that you need to really actually find a fine balance. But I think empathy is where it's at. I think, you know, it's important for you to genuinely be nice today, because I feel like there are these ways, especially like the media, right? Like, I've worked in enough organizations where nobody cared for you. Nobody cares whether you're having a good day, bad day, better day, or an ugly day. It doesn't matter. You just got to come here, do your work, and leave. And I feel like today the nature of that organization has changed, right? I feel like today when we're running a really young office, it's important for us to kind of like take care not just of like what the workings of an office are, but I think it's important to take care of people today. You're actually like, you know, building a business on their back. I have had a lot of businesses built on mine too. But I feel like today, the fact that there are enough conversations around it just drive you towards a slightly more empathetic approach towards what work life and what relationships really are.
What do you have to say on this, Navya?
Yeah, I think I agree. I feel we need to start treating mental health equivalent to physical health, and I think the pandemic has allowed us to do that and focus a lot more on our overall well-being, which is, I think, is a combination of the two. And I see a lot of
and
people...
we run a page also, you know,
yes,
which talks about
yeah,
it.
at ARA we talk a lot about mental health and the importance of you know, taking that time out, not just for your physical self, but for your mental self as well. And I think that a lot of people are beginning to do that, which is great. And I think that a lot of people are understanding the importance of respecting other people's mental health as well, which is also really great to see. So I hope that this healthy dialogue continues, and that more people are respectful, mindful, and empathetic of each other's health.
Since you have been a part of, you know, being a podcaster, did it ever strike in your mind, you know, you wish to be a part of, you know, the Bollywood world, or, you know, be an actress ever?
I think that I've been working now for 2.5 years. I'm an entrepreneur. I've started a business. I've also done a lot of work in the social impact space. And I mean, it's really, you know, I feel glad that people think that I can take up more, but I don't think that Bollywood is something that I'm truly passionate about, and I'm really, really happy doing what I do every day, and podcasting is one of them now. So I think that I'm going to limit myself to that.
And that's the most exciting part about Navya.
Yeah.
But she doesn't want to be.
She doesn't want to be.
In fact, that's what actually also got us to like really
Yeah.
work together, because, you know, she comes from the background that she comes from, but she doesn't really want to you know, want to be an actor, right? So I felt like that was something that we really genuinely needed to be, for her to be in the podcasting space, because I feel like, you know, it's an isolated space for her to be in, you know, to kind of like push her as an enthusiastic, you know, explorer of what new things and what amazing things she can learn and what kind of voice she can actually build out. I thought that was one of the most interesting aspects about her.
But have you ever had any crush on Bollywood actor, if you had to name anyone? Or Hollywood also, for that matter?
No, not really. I mean, not a crush per se. I don't think I can pick one person.
Wow.
I'm a big Govinda fan, so I don't know if that counts. Big
And
Govinda
recently he
fan.
performed so well, you know, at Filmfare.
Yes, and he
Middle
was
East.
on
Yeah,
Indian Idol
star.
last weekend as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm a big,
wow.
I love his songs, so big Govinda fan.
And before I let both of you go, what are your upcoming projects you both are working on after this?
2023 is actually going to be really exciting for IVM. I think you're going to be seeing a lot more stuff, built in the fiction space. You're going to be seeing a lot of stuff being built in the Gen Z space. I think it's an interesting time. I think 2023 kind of holds a lot of promise, because I think this year that we've just come out of this lockdown, so 2022 was a great foundational year to kind of get a lot of other things going, and I think 2023 is going to see a lot of that fruition of ideas.
I mean, I would hope that I can continue podcasting. I really enjoyed, this journey, and so I hope 2023 I can see more of me as a podcaster, and there's a lot more that I want to do with my company, Ara. So I think 2023, a lot of new exciting things coming up there as well.
Navya, what do you think differentiates the Gen Z and the millennial?
I'm trying to dissect when the millennial stops and when a Gen Z. Is it post 90s?
84.
A millennial ends at 2000, right?
2000, no.
So I'm actually a millennial because I'm 97. So I would say.
I think Gen Z is, no, I think after 95 or something.
Is it?
Millennial?
2000s.
Like, I know, like if you're an 80s born, then you're an elder
No,
millennial.
I think it's post 2000 is Gen Z.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm a millennial then technically because I'm
Yeah.
97 born. I don't know. I don't see the.
I think Gen Zs are like quite quick and like, they just want decisions to be taken, and they are very
Yeah.
haywire.
Are you one?
That's what I'm saying. That
Speaking from personal experience.
I'm a bit of both.
You just get confused sometimes. Like you
Like
don't
I said, you all
understand.
are overstimulated. You all have a lot of information.
I
You'll
think
have
we're
to sit
very
and process all of it,
we're
right?
problem solvers.
Especially
We're like
to-
we've inherited this world. There's too much nonsense. We're going to solve it, and we've taken it upon ourselves to do that. I really like that attitude about Gen Zs.
Nice. And one fashion tip if you have to give to your fans out
I'm
there.
the least fashionable person ever. This is
But
like
of
how I will
course,
find me.
the simple.
Be
the simple.
comfortable. I'm just comfortable in whatever I wear.
Thank you so much for your
Thank
lovely
you.
time.
Thank you.